As the attorney for the board, I'm calling the meeting to order. Salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Laura will read the Sunshine Law.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, it is hereby announced and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting.
Check if the
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following. Posted on the bulletin board of the office of the township clerk, posted on the bulletin boards within the municipal complex, printed in the Home News Tribune on December 30th, 2022, posted on the Monroe Township website, and sent to those individuals who have requested personal notice. I'll do a roll call.
Roll
Mr.
call.
Markel,
Here.
Councilman Van Zora,
Here.
Mr. Gaffrey,
Here.
Mr. Rothman,
Here.
Mr. Riggs,
Here.
Ms. Polidoro,
here.
Mr. McGowan,
Here.
Ms. Brodsky,
Here.
Mr. Patel,
Here.
Ms. Koreshi. I open up nominations for chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a nomination, please?
Yes.
I would nominate yourself, Mark Gaffrey, to serve again in the year 2023 as chairman of the planning board.
Second. Motion to close.
Make a motion.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. Okay, the next position that's open is for vice chairman.
I could also make a nomination on that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Karen Polidoro as vice chairman for this year.
Second.
Second. Any other nominations? Okay, we're going to close nominations.
Move to close.
Second. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs.
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next position that's open is position for attorney for the planning board. Do I have any nominations?
I would nominate Jerry Convery to remain as attorney for the planning board.
You beat me to saying it. I had my hand up
I
instead.
didn't see you.
Okay, then I'll have to second it.
Okay, any other nominations? Motion to close nominations.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs.
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. Okay, next position is township planning board engineer. Any motion for any nominations?
Mr. Rothman has.
Thanks. I thought about it for long and hard, and I'm thinking Mark Razumowitz, let's give him another try.
Second.
Second.
Any other nominations? Motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next position is engineer firm for the planning board. Do I have a motion for nomination?
I'd like to make a motion for Center State.
Do I have a second? Second. Any other nominations? Motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next position that's up is planner. Do I have any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mika Apte and Rob Russo of CME.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other nominations? Motion to close nominations?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next position is secretary. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Laura Zaluski.
Second, David?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other nominations? Motion to close nominations?
Moved.
Second?
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes.
Thank you.
And final position that's up for tonight is,
We don't do that.
okay. Okay. The rules and regulations were sent out along with the list of dates for the meetings. Is there any discussion?
There's no change in this for the coming year. I would recommend approval.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Abstain.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. Okay, next item up are the minutes. Laura circulated the minutes.
Are you doing the date?
We did the dates all, did rules and dates.
Oh, okay.
All in one.
Okay, Laura circulated the minutes from the last meeting. Any discussion? Any proposed changes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from November 30th, 2022.
Second.
2022?
Yes,
Yes.
November 30th. Okay, we're
I'll
gonna,
second it.
Is that not what I said?
we're gonna do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? Abstain? Okay, the minutes pass. Okay, on the agenda this evening, we have one application. It's PB 124422 Forever Iron Doors. Mr. Toto, Walter Toto is the counsel for the movement.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Walter Toto on behalf of the applicant Forever Iron Doors. It's nice to see everyone again, and congratulations to everyone on their reappointments. I look forward to working with all of you during the upcoming year, 2023. So without further ado, Mr. Convery, I did provide an affidavit of service and publication to Ms. Zaluski to establish jurisdiction for this hearing.
I've received the packet. I'll review it. If I see any irregularities, I'll report back to the board. Otherwise, your client has permission to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Convery. So tonight, the applicant seeks preliminary major site plan approval with bulk variance relief and design waivers to permit the development of a modestly sized warehouse of just over 27,000 square feet at 922 Route 33. That's also known as Lot 11, Block 3. The property is almost exactly 2 acres in area. It's in the highway development zone, and warehousing and office are permitted uses in this zone, and that's why we're before the planning board. There is an existing 1.5-story single-family dwelling with a garage on the subject property. That would be removed if the board sees fit to grant this approval. We propose right-in and right-out traffic, as well as site lighting, signage, fencing, landscaping, a septic system, and of course, drainage improvements and stormwater management improvements, which we'll get into during our engineer's testimony. This property was the subject of a prior approval, not before this board, but before the Zoning Board of Adjustment in 2017. At that time, that application was bifurcated, but the Zoning Board did grant conditional use variance for a car wash and lubrication facility. That applicant, or actually the contract purchaser, never pursued the site plan, and that application sort of fell by the wayside. If we were to receive approval, of course, that old approval would be rescinded and void and of no further effect. We do have reports from Mr. Razumowitz from Center State dated December 2nd, 2022, and from Ms. Apte from Mika at CME from January 12th, 2023. We're prepared to address all of the comments therein. Mr. Chairman, I have 5 witnesses. I have Barry Kaufman, the owner of Forever Iron Doors. I have Frank Antizel, our project engineer, who is pinch hitting for Sharif Ali from Amertech, who had a conflict and could not appear this evening. I have Patrick Downey, who is our professional traffic operations engineer, and Mark Remza, who is our project planner. And, well, actually, before Mark, if the board has questions of our architect, Kurt Ludwig, Kurt is also here to answer any of the board's questions about the interior design, layout, building facade, etc. So without, no, I'll call my first witness, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and that would be Barry Kaufman.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Just state your full name and please spell your last name.
Barry Kaufman, Kaufman.
Speak into the mic, Barry, and make sure that we're being recorded. So, Barry, what is your relationship with Forever Iron Doors?
I am the owner.
You're the owner, okay. And what is the business of Forever Iron Doors?
Custom iron doors, windows, railings, and miscellaneous iron products.
And how long is...
Oh, sorry.
Mr.
Better.
Rich, did you hear that comment? You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. So how long, well, go ahead, continue if you have anything more to add to that. So how long has Forever Iron Doors been in business?
I've had it for just about 4 years.
4 years. And where is the primary location of the office?
Our headquarters is on Route 9 in Marlboro.
Okay. And where are your warehouses, if you have any?
I currently rent a warehouse in Englishtown.
Okay. Do you have other offices?
Yes.
Whereabouts?
We have one in Long Island, New York, Charlotte, North Carolina, Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay. So the purpose of this application is to move certain operations to Monroe Township because you've outgrown at least your existing facility where you're leasing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what do you propose to store within the warehouse?
We offer a wide selection of custom iron doors. We'd like to stock a obviously very large quantity so we can do more e-commerce, and we can try to stock some of our other locations too, because we're all pretty much on the East Coast, so we can truck them back and forth as we need to.
But you're not proposing a showroom within this building, correct?
No, our showroom is on Route 9 in Marlboro.
And that will remain the same.
Yes.
So existing customers, new customers, the public in general do not come to the site.
They have no reason to come here.
Okay. How many, is any proposal to store any hazardous materials in the warehouse or
No.
office?
No.
Okay. How many employees do you have, proposed employees for this building?
I would say there's maybe 2 or 3 people in the office, and then we'll have a couple guys in the morning just picking up doors, taking them out for deliveries, for installs, and that's it.
So when you say, how about in the warehouse itself?
Maybe 2 guys in the warehouse also to load the trucks.
So probably a maximum of 8 employees?
Yeah, 8, yes.
Okay. And what are the hours and the days of operation?
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Okay. So no Saturday or Sunday hours?
No.
Okay. What types of trucks will frequent the site?
So we have 3 box trucks that we use to, deliver and install the doors. The doors are heavy, you need a large truck to move them. And then we receive maybe 3 to 4 tractor trailers a month that we just unload. They come in, we unload, and then they leave.
Describe the loading and unloading process, or unloading and loading process.
So all the products are imported from overseas. They pack them in a container. We unload it with a forklift into the warehouse, and then we sort it out and, distribute accordingly.
How long does the loading process take?
Unloading is 4 to 6 hours usually to unload a container.
Okay, and none of these trailers have any reason to be refrigerated, correct? It's
No.
And you said for tractor trailers, that's 3 or 4 per month, correct?
Correct.
But the box trucks would be 3 to 4 per day?
2 to 3 per day.
2 to 3 per day? Okay. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I'd like to call the project engineer unless the board has questions, of course.
A question. Do you fabricate stuff in this warehouse?
No. No, everything is fabricated overseas and brought here.
Bless you.
Gesundheit. Just a minor question. On your application, number 11 said, basis for determining parking requirements, you wrote down 16 employees. And what I just heard was a handful. Is that a discrepancy or? what?
That is, Mr. Rothman, we would have to amend that. That's definitely inaccurate. Okay.
Uh,
Thank you.
saw that.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this application appeared before the Environmental Commission.
John, let
One
go
of their recommendations was this general area
John, let
is
go of the
part of
button.
our.
Have to hold it.
It's on.
You want to hold it?
You don't hold.
All right, this application is in the area of our general fulfillment of our affordable housing obligation, which means that it's going to be a heavily pedestrian area. And we were looking for a sidewalk across the front because the adjacent properties, as approved, will have sidewalks.
John, that's a good question and a good comment, but the western part of that property, of the mixed-use development, is non-residential of that mixed-use
It's
development.
only what,
It is non-residential. And Mika mentions that in her report. The adjoining uses will not be residential.
isn't this adjacent to the,
It is, but it's interesting. 2/3 of that site is dedicated, I think, to residential, but the balance of it, which adjoins this property, is strictly non-residential of that mixed-use development that's proposed.
So currently, the zone is mixed-use residential housing, and you're very correct. It is to satisfy Monroe's affordable housing application. But the way the district has been decided is the northern 1/3 portion, which is adjacent to this property, would be dedicated to commercial use.
I understand, but, you know, I still, we're putting sidewalks, everything that's developed on 33. But why are we making exclusions, which could possibly in the future have the township paying for the sidewalk?
Yeah, that is a fair question. I'd like Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we're getting ahead because we didn't hear from their engineer, but our ordinance requires curbs and sidewalks along the frontage of all properties or applications before the board. So I would let them.
We could, yeah, I think
Yeah.
we can answer that right now, Mr. Riggs. We would install sidewalk.
And certainly you're in it for preliminary, so we can work on that between preliminary and final, whether it's going to be asphalt or wider than 4 foot. I think, you know, we go a little bit wider out there and possibly asphalt.
Fair enough, Mark. Sure. Understood.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just have another, if I could ask our planner to comment on the buffering, does it comply with our plan?
So currently, as they have proposed, they do not comply with the buffer width. They need 100 feet. They are at 75.1.
There's the
It's-
tree that's classified as a gold falls. What is that? Is it a deciduous or non-deciduous?
So
CS it's called.
sorry, 1 second.
Mr. Riggs, we'll get into the buffering through our engineering and planning testimony as well.
I want to make sure. that-
Sure.
I think I think the way the plantings they're proposing, we do have certain comments to that. So I would let their planner and engineer testify to that and then raise the questions.
Because I want to make sure we have compliance with our buffer.
Yeah, they are seeking variances in width and also got to do with something of the berming also.
Thank you.
If nothing further, thanks, Barry. Just be available for further questions potentially. So Frank, if you would.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Would you state your full name and spell your last name, please?
Sure. It's Frank. Last name is Antisell. Antisell.
Frank, you're a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been so licensed?
Over 28 years.
And you're currently the zoning board engineer for the Township of South Brunswick?
That is true, yes.
Have you testified before Monroe boards before?
Both the planning board and the zoning board.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer Mr. Anazel as an expert in civil
Thank you,
engineering.
accepted.
Frank, I know you did not prepare the plans themselves, the site plan, the preliminary major site plan, and I know it was prepared by Amertech, but explain to the board, if you would, how you've become familiar with this application through discussions with the project engineer and your review of the plans and the site.
Sure, I reviewed the plans and also met with Mr. Ali of Amertech to go over his file and answer any questions I had prior to this hearing tonight.
Sure. Mr. Condor, if we may, can we mark that A1?
A1 with today's date, please.
Sure. Section and rendering?
Yep.
Cross-section and rendering.
It,
Frank,
yeah, the plan that you see on the board is a colorized rendering of the landscaping plan that's included in your packet. And then the cross-section on the bottom is something that was prepared based on discussions with your professionals.
So and we'll hand out the bottom, the cross-section during Mr. Rems's testimony. And Mr. Riggs will give you a real good view of what we're planning for the buffering and the buffer area. So Frank, if you would, give the board the benefit of the engineering aspects of this application.
Sure. See if microphone turns
Just
on.
hold it, push a button in.
You got it?
There it goes. Is it working now? Yep. Right. Be easier if I come over to the rendering. As we told the board before, the site is known as 922 State Highway Route 33, and it's located on the southern side of Route 33 along the eastbound lanes between Butcher Road and Prodlin Way. There is currently a 1.5-story frame dwelling on the site with a detached garage. Both of those will be removed. The site is located in the HD Highway Development District. The applicant is proposing a right turn in and a right turn out onto Route 33 as part of this application. We're proposing a 27,152 square foot warehouse, and there'll be a small office component that is 1,800 square feet. We have 11 passenger car parking spaces here for the 8 employees. We have 4 loading docks, and we have 4 truck parking spaces. In addition, we have a dumpster that's in the front here, which that dumpster is used for when they go to a site and install a door and they come back, there'll be doors that they brought back from the site, and this dumpster right here is for doors or whatever other debris is brought back from the work site. And then we also have a dumpster in the front here, which is for trash and recycling. Behind the warehouse, we have our septic field. We are also proposing a well up in the front corner here alongside the building, since this is an area of the town that doesn't have sewer or water. We have several bulk variances that are part of this application. The first one is for minimum lot area. The ordinance requires 7 acres. We have, our site is 2 acres. The minimum lot width that's required is 300 feet. We have 200 feet. Minimum lot frontage, 300 feet is required. We have 200 feet. The minimum lot depth is 500 feet, and we are at 498 feet. The minimum side yard that's required in this zone is 40 feet, and we're at 19.95 feet on one side and 20 feet on the other side. And then the minimum buffer right-of-way to the right-of-way line, which required is 100 feet, and we're at 71.5 feet. The project also requires variances for parking. When you go by your ordinance, 34 spaces are required. We're proposing 11. And as you've heard in the testimony from the owner, we have 8 employees, and there's no anticipated customer traffic coming to the site. So we feel that the 11 spaces are appropriate. In addition, we're seeking a design exception. Your ordinance requires 10 by 20 parking spaces. We're proposing 9 by 18. Given that this is for workers only to the site, we feel that 9 by 18 is appropriate. For trucks, your ordinance would require 6 spaces are required for this. We are proposing 2 to 4. We have the 4 spaces in front of each of the loading docks. And we also have a variance is required for parking in the front yard setback. And our planner will go through and give more detail on each of these variances when he comes up and testifies. In addition, we've met with your professionals at the TRC meetings, and we've had additional conversations with them regarding what's contained in their memos, and we believe that we can satisfy what they're looking for in there and comply with their comments. And also, we have received approval from the fire official for the site layout.
Mr. Chairman, nothing further from Mr. Anizel.
It's up to you, or Mr. Razamodes, any questions or comments?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I believe they've agreed to meet all the comments in my December 2nd, 2022 review letter.
That's correct, Mark.
I would just say I met with Mr. Sharif Ali. I reviewed the letter prior to the hearing and went through all the items. I'm comfortable that they can meet all the items in the review letter between now and final. You noted that you had fire approval. I would say any revisions to the plan, which I believe will be forthcoming, should you get approved tonight, would have to go back to fire for approval of the final set of plans.
And in
Oh,
fact-
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And some of the items, the Environmental Commission, I think Mr. Riggs said that you may have appeared before them, or?
I don't know that we did, actually. That
So-
may be
so-
news to
I
me.
don't know if we appeared before them or if they reviewed the plan
They
at
may
one of their
have.
meetings.
I think that's what happened.
So I would just say,
We have the
before,
chairperson of the Environmental Commission sitting here.
I don't recall this plan. So you might want to check your records. I don't recall that the.
Unless it was from the prior application, but we'll check the records and make sure that we comply, of course.
so what I was getting at was, if you're approved tonight for preliminary, before coming back for final, you'd want to be before the Environmental Commission and get their comments before coming back here for final.
Understood, Mark, and
Al-
agreed.
Also, some of the other items, the DEP, wetlands, LOI, and certification of the buffer area, if it encroaches onto your property, again, before final. We'd like to have some of these loose ends wrapped up so we know that the whatever plan comes here for final, it's the final
So
plan.
I know we have an LOI from 2021, but I know there was a concern about adjacent properties. There's an LOI on the adjacent property and one is pending.
Yes,
So, yeah.
Mr. Ali said that, that was forthcoming as well.
Sure.
From the DEP. Also, my review letter talks about a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. Again, you're going to be before the Environmental Commission, so,
Agreed.
so again, that should be in order before coming back. And my other comments pertain to traffic, so I'll hold off on them until your traffic engineer is up.
And there was a question about the fence, the color and type, so it's white vinyl as proposed. That may have been in Mika's report, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, you're proposing a white vinyl and,
Yep.
because I think it just indicated a board-on-board
Correct.
fence.
Yeah.
And the vinyl is preferred over the wood, so.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Couple of questions. First, I want to clarify the parking space size. We usually consider that a variance rather than design exception.
Okay.
So just wanted to clarify that. The second item, I think a couple of other variances that have not been mentioned tonight. One would be parking within the 30 feet of the outer walls. I think that is a variance that has to be acknowledged. There is a driveway setback, which is a waiver that has to be acknowledged. Since we are talking about fencing, I think one of the questions was raised about the height of fencing coming to the front. Is that being reduced, or is that still being kept at 6 feet?
It was my understanding that we have a 6-foot fence and we're gonna stop it at the front yard setback.
Okay, just wanted, okay.
So at 50 feet then, Vigo, right?
So at 50 feet each side,
Yeah.
it'll stop.
It'll just stop completely, or would you have it at 3 feet?
We were gonna stop it,
Okay, so no fence in the front yard.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for stepping on you.
The other question, since we are talking about refuse recycling, there are certain requirements in Monroe Ordinance in terms of having buffering or visual buffering around that. This question was raised during our technical review as to the placement of the dumpster, and if another location can be looked at that, or how would the buffering be mitigated?
Yes, well, the cross-section that is provided there, that Mr. Remsa will go over,
Okay,
will address that.
I'll wait for that one then. The other question, could you talk, we didn't hear any testimony on the signage. Would you be handling that, or would somebody else be?
Sure. As far as the signage go, we have one 24-foot high, 24 square foot sign that is 10 feet from the front right-of-way line. I know your ordinance requires 20, but given that this is Route 33, our feeling is if we push the sign back too far, it makes it hard to see. I mean, so we're trying to keep it at a reasonable size, which 24 square feet is relatively small. So we would, our planner will get more into the testimony on that. And then we have one facade sign.
I think we had proposed 2 facade signs early, but it's down to 1.
No, it's down to one.
one.
Okay. And in terms of, I think that was one of our recommendation, if the smaller sign can be removed. So I'm assuming the smaller sign is coming off, and the larger sign will still comply with the 10% requirement.
Well, yes.
Yes.
In terms of the freestanding sign, you did acknowledge the setback. There is also another variance associated with that, because it's again in the buffer area. No signs is permitted there. Is the sign going to be single-sided or double-sided?
It's going to be double-sided. So this way cars coming from the other direction can see it also.
Parking, I guess we wait for the traffic engineer. Could you talk a little bit about the lighting on the property?
Sure. The lighting is going to comply with your ordinance. We have pole-mounted lighting. I can pull up the plan to see exactly how high they are. Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Okay, there was one design exception noted by us regarding the average level. It's recommended that they be 75% of the average level.
Correct. And
Would that be met?
that's something that we will adjust on the plan.
There was a question regarding, the lot coverage. I know you're meeting exactly at 60%. We noted that, is there a possible, chance of expanding the landscape area along the 5 vehicle parking spaces that are provided in order to, just not be at the exact impervious coverage? Is there any space where additional, and I'm talking about the northern, if I'm saying the northern portion of the property, if there can be some additional landscaping or pervious pavers or something like that can be.
That is something that we can take a look at before we come back for final.
Okay,
And if we can, we will definitely look to add it.
thank you. And, is there any ground HVAC mechanical systems, or is it all going to be rooftop?
I would defer to our architect, but
Okay.
it's my understanding that everything's going to be on the roof.
Then I'll ask him about the buffering of that.
Our architect just confirmed it is on the roof.
It is on the roof.
So all the mechanicals will be up on the roof.
Well, since Mr. Toto doesn't know if the architect is going to testify.
No, he will.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have questions, we'll bring Kurt Ludwig up, absolutely.
All right,
Before
okay.
Mark Rems testifies.
And the last question about the EV space, if
Yes.
you could just provide testimony that you would be complying with
We,
the,
we will be complying with the EV space, and with that, we'd actually get credit for 2 spaces.
Yeah, so there's,
So our, technically, our parking number would go from 11 to 12.
yeah, but I think the requirement is quite high for the 2 bonus.
I understand, but just,
Yeah, got it.
we understand the EV ordinance, and we plan on complying with it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Benzur?
Thanks. I do have a question. Just looking at what you have on the easel there. Route 33 is to the left, correct?
correct.
Yes.
The way that the driveway almost looks as if, it's like reversed, like as if people would be coming in from the other direction. Is that going to be changed around a little bit?
Well,
Or is it just an optical illusion?
It's sort of
on-
an
on my
optical
part?
illusion. The DOT, and our traffic engineer can get into this more, but the DOT requires that the driveway be at a 90-degree angle to Route 33. So we're at a 90-degree angle to Route 33, but unfortunately, our property is at more of a 60-degree angle to Route 33, which is why you have the optical illusion of it being sort of coming down and then turning.
How wide is the driveway?
It is, I think, 33 feet at its maximum width.
So that's plenty wide for the tractor. It looks like tractor trailer is going to have to make a sharp right turn in there if they're coming down.
We've put the turning radius template on there and have shown to both your engineer and the fire official that a tractor trailer can turn in there and that your fire apparatuses can turn and come into the
That's
site.
even more so. And you have enough room within the parking area for the tractor trailers
Yes.
to maneuver to.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why you see the gray area there that is fairly large. So this way we have maneuverability for the trucks that are coming in.
And when you were asked about the sign, is that going to be on the green area near the roadway?
Yes.
Or is that a higher berm or is it level ground still?
Well, Mr. Remsa will go through the cross-section and go through all the different particulars with that.
Okay.
Because
fine.
it varies. It goes up, then comes down.
All right. Okay. I'll
The
wait.
sign is on level ground.
Yes.
Just to throw that out.
Hopefully the application's on level.
Absolutely, likewise.
I'm sure. We'll wait for Mr. Remsa. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry.
That's all I had. I just clarifying for my.
No, it was a very good question and observation on that.
Well, thank you.
The question. Call your
Thanks,
next
Frank.
witness.
At this stage, I'd like to call Patrick Downey, our traffic engineer. Patrick?
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
State your full name and spell your last name, please.
Sure. Patrick Downey, Downey.
Patrick, give the board the benefit of your CV, if you would.
Sure. So I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, a certified professional traffic operations engineer, and I have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from Rowan University. I haven't testified before in Monroe, but I've testified before other planning and zoning boards in New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick, give the board the benefit of both parking analysis and the traffic analysis.
Yep, absolutely. So starting with just the site access, as you've heard before, it's a proposed right-in, right-out driveway along Route 33. We've located it further west than the existing condition just to get outside the median opening, just to further discourage any illegal left turns physically based on the median. That driveway will require a New Jersey Department of Transportation driveway access permit. It requires the lowest order of access permit, which is a minor, based upon the relatively low trip generation of the proposed use. So that driveway design will ultimately be subject to their review and approval, and when we make application to them, we'll incorporate the sidewalk along the frontage that was just agreed to. terms of traffic generation of the project, we submitted a report with the trip generation information for this proposed use using the New Jersey Department of Transportation rates, which are adopted from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. There's 33 or fewer peak hour trips during the highest peak hour. DOT and IT both identify a threshold of 100 peak hour trips as what's considered to be significant. This project is a third of that threshold. So based on that, we don't consider this to be a significant volume of traffic and don't anticipate a perceptible traffic impact on surrounding roadways and surrounding intersections. In terms of the parking, as you heard before, 34 spaces are required per the ordinance, whereas 11 are proposed. Not only does that 11 make sense operationally, given the 8 employees anticipated and no customers coming to the site, it's also supported by industry data, again, from the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They publish peak parking demand ratios for different land uses. And when you apply their rates, you project 11 anticipated for this use, which is essentially right in line with the operational information you heard before. So we would agree that 11 is sufficient. There's no detriment to granting that relief. Parking space size, you heard before, the ordinance requires 10 by 20, whereas 9 by 18 is proposed. 9 by 18 is a common standard in a lot of municipalities these days. It's also supported by industry data, even within New Jersey. So when you look at the New Jersey EV regulations, what they require for the EV spaces statewide is 9 by 18. The RSIS, even though this isn't a residential project, RSIS recognizes 9 by 18 as a standard parking space size in parking lots. And it's also supported by the Urban Land Institute, which recommends 18-foot long stalls and stalls that can be even narrower than 9 feet for low turnover uses like this. So we're confident that 9 by 18 is sufficient. In terms of tractor trailer parking, I just wanted to make sure I was clear and that we're all clear on the record that I believe the 6 space calculation is a maximum. So because we are proposing fewer than 6, there's no relief required there. We fall below the maximum number. And the loading supply, 2 are required, 2 loading docks. We propose 2 or more. And the space size of 12.5 by 60 satisfies the 12 by 50 required. So just in summary, the driveway provides safe and efficient access for the site. The proposed use generates a relatively low volume of traffic, and the parking loading design is sufficient to satisfy the demands of the site.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mark, do you have any questions?
Sure. So my first question is, in your report, table 1, you got a breakdown of maximum peak hour trips.
Correct.
What's the breakdown? What is that? Is that 33 trucks, 33 cars?
No, so for a warehouse like this, typically it's about 15% of the peak hour trips are trucks. The rest are passenger vehicles. So that would work out to, I believe, 4 or 5 truck trips during the peak hours. Truthfully, given the operational information here, these are probably higher numbers than what we'd actually
I
expect.
was going to say, so for the board's reference, why would you use higher numbers or different numbers than what you're proposing?
Well, these are essentially the rates we'll be required to use when we make application to DOT. This is essentially the industry standard for this land use. There's obviously variation between individual users within those land uses, and this is likely on the lower side. So even though this is a third of what we'd consider significant, it's even more conservative.
So the proposed use is going to have, based on the testimony tonight, it's going to be less trips than actually what you have in the report.
Yes, correct.
Thanks. Signage, I'd look for some additional signage out there to direct the egress so that to right turns only, so that nobody comes out and tries to make a left.
Yeah, I think we could absolutely work with you to up the signage.
So you'll work on that one-way signage or right-only signage?
Correct, and DOT will likely request the same.
Thanks. Is there a deceleration lane being proposed as part of this with the state?
There is not at this point. We haven't made application yet, but I would be very surprised if they asked for it, given the low volume of traffic anticipated.
So again, I just reiterate that, between now and, should you get approved, between now and final, that you have the feedback from the state as to whether that's going to be required and or not.
Absolutely.
And what Councilman Van Zura talked about with trucks turning into the site with the right turn, is there ample room for a truck to turn right in when a truck is making a right out of the driveway?
I'd have to review the plan specifically, but as you heard before, there's maybe 3 to 4 tractor trailer deliveries in a month. So the odds of one coming in, one coming out at the same time is unlikely. So even if it couldn't, I wouldn't be overly concerned, but I believe on the plan that it could do so.
My concern would be a truck stopping in the lane on Route 33, waiting for a car to exit the site.
Car, I'm confident in saying it could certainly get around. Truck coming out at the same time, I wouldn't be positive, but there is a full width shoulder, which effectively acts as a defact
So if you can look at
acceleration lane
that,
if needed. Yeah.
you can look at that and provide some turning movements, but the concern is particularly a truck turning in, and whether it's a car exiting, sitting at the stop sign to exit, or even a truck would be even worse, sitting there. If you can just take a look at that.
Yep, absolutely.
But your representation is that that'll work and you can accommodate that scenario.
Correct, yes.
The opening in the island, there's a curb cut in the island out there opposite Bentley Road. Any reason why, what's the reasoning why this driveway is not lined up with that opening?
Specifically to further discourage the left turns based on the access level of the highway, DOT really only permits left turns at signalized jug handles along this type of highway, which is obviously not what's going to exist here. So they're going to require it to be right in, right out. So by lining it up with the median opening, you're sort of allowing that left turn movement to occur where it otherwise should not. So we've slid it within the full width of the median so that left turns can occur.
And you're comfortable that someone heading westbound couldn't make a left turn into the site through the median?
They would need to drive the wrong way during the eastbound lanes for a bit. So yes, we're confident that this discourages that.
Okay. And that's all I have for traffic. Thank you.
Mr. Downey, I have a couple of questions. To clarify on record, the parking requirement comes up to 50, and you're...
You know, I did have a question on that. I think even within your 2 review letters, there was a different calculation. In yours, you have the office component broken out using the office rate, whereas Mr. Razumovic's letter did not, which is how we had calculated it. In the ITE definitions, warehouse includes ancillary office space the same way, you know, a retail use would include ancillary storage space. So we're typically not breaking out individual pieces of a single land use and applying different rates to it. So the way we're reading the ordinance and based on other industry standards, we don't necessarily think it should be broken out. Given that we're proposing 11, I'm not sure it really makes a difference because we're confident that 11 is sufficient and that's what we're proposing. It's really just, you know, what number relief is being requested from.
I would beg to differ. I mean, we have usually separated the use house. I understand industry standards take the warehousing, but especially in my experience, especially when there were larger warehouses, we've had where the office space was only 10,000 and the rest of the warehouse was 200,000, 300,000. So to combat the dynamic, obviously the office number of employees are larger than a warehouse, which would have more automation and lesser number of employees working there. So that's how I calculated that, because I think our land use ordinance provides 2 different requirements, the employees number based on, or then the square footage number.
And the greater applies, right?
Yeah, the greater applies.
I would note this, Mika, that there may be some confusion on the plans. You've got 3,600 for the office, we're only proposing 1,800.
Okay.
So we're reducing that by 9.
Okay.
If you take the 200 square feet, yeah. So that's
Yeah, so I think if you do break it out but use the 1,800, it comes to 41.
Right.
41.
Right.
Okay. So just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
Now, going back to the requirement, I know your statement was because this type of use is a low generating based on the testimony of the applicant. However, as you are aware, the use is as such being permitted as a warehouse and office use. So in your review of ITE or, you know, different types of warehouses such as this throughout the state, how would you compare, like say tomorrow, some other use that has a higher employee generation, how would that combat with the 11 spaces?
Well, to apply just, you know, generic warehouse standards to it, we did look at the ITE rates for standard warehouse operation, not specific to this intended operation, and that comes out to 11 spaces as well.
Okay.
So we have 11 maybe 12, depending on the EV. But even based on industry standards, generically, we feel that this is enough.
So based on industry standards for a warehouse this size, 11 parking spaces is what is required?
That's correct.
The other question I have has to do with the parking space size. Again, going back to the testimony that was provided here, the site is going to have 2-3 box trucks per day, as well as 3-4 tractor trailers per month. Considering 8 employees on site, and say it's an odd chance the tractor trailer, would the vehicular 9x18 parking space be able to accommodate box truck, or is it your, given that there are 4 loading spaces, the box truck would be accommodated on the
I think that's plan A. I'll say is that the box trucks are going to park in those loading spaces because they're not going to be used 99% of the time. If it did need to park in another space, I think it would just stick out a little further. But given the large pavement area around it, I think other cars can still get in the adjacent spaces.
Okay, so 9x18 is just more than sufficient for a typical car size.
That's correct.
Rather than a box truck. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions?
Great, thanks, Patrick. Mr. Chairman, we'll call Kurt Ludwig, the project architect. Kurt, if you would.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your full name and please spell your last name.
Kurt Ludwig, Ludwig.
Kurt, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey,
Yes,
and your license is current?
that's correct.
And how long have you been so licensed?
Since 1991.
Okay, and have you had occasion to appear before planning and zoning boards in New Jersey?
Yes, I have.
How often?
Every other month.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Chairman, I would offer Mr. Ludwig as an expert in the field of
Thank
architecture.
you.
Kurt, if you've heard some of the comments, but if you want to just give an overall feel architecturally for the, let me show the elevation of what we're looking at for the warehouse, and then we'll address, there's a comment in Ms. Apte's report that we can address as well, so why don't you just take it from there?
Okay. I apologize, I don't have a large board this evening. I do have a small colored version of the exterior. I could pin it up there and label it if you'd like. A2. It's
Pass it around too, if
I could do that.
if that's the board's pleasure, sure.
okay.
Yeah, because
I
yeah,
have extra copies.
yeah, okay. We'll mark that A2, Mr. Convery?
Yes.
That's not part of the existing packet. Thank you, Mark. We'll refer to that as elevations.
Yes.
Looks like Mr. Rems has done that before. He's done this before. a few times.
So the last page has the colored exterior elevations. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark? Mark, you have an extra?
Yeah.
I'd like mine. There you go.
Okay. So again, the sheet A4 includes the 4 exterior elevations. We tried to break up the building with color, as you can see, and define the different functions of the building. The main entryway is highlighted on the front elevation with the narrow, tall feature with the 2 colors. We also added some color at the loading dock area. We're considering a tilt-up construction with a stucco type finish. Based on some feedback from one of the meetings with the town professionals, we added a parapet roof wall on the front facade so that that would block the HVAC units on the roof. The sides and rear of the building simply include egress doors with stairs down to grade. The front elevation also includes a barrier-free handicap ramp that will go down to the handicap parking spaces.
Right, Kurt, there was a comment in the CME report as to whether or not architecturally it meets the design standards of section 108-12.3E. Does your design meet those standards?
I believe it does. We highlighted the entryway with our color scheme.
So between now and final approval, do you agree to label any of the design features that we have?
I can do that.
Okay, okay. Mr. Chairman, nothing further.
Mark, do you have any comments?
What's the overall height of the building?
45 feet to the roof and another 5 feet for the parapet.
I'll let our planner comment on that. I believe that's a variance situation now. And
I think 45 is to the roof level.
Right.
And then parapets are excluded from the calculation of the.
So it does comply.
I believe so.
45 feet to the roof surface.
Yeah.
And then
No?
I believe our ordinance reads that it includes the parapet. It's at the highest point of the roof.
would that be considered roof, the parapet?
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but
Uh-huh.
that's my recollection, and, your planner is well versed in our ordinance as well.
We have it at
Um,
4 and 6 feet. The parapet is a wall that goes up
Yeah,
higher
no,
than the roof.
more,
just
yeah.
to cover-
more than 10.
The height limitations shall apply to
Right.
chimneys, except that some may.
Well, certainly, whatever we do, if the parapet is included, and we can address this at final as well, we would certainly not be over 50 feet, Mark, or over 49, because that would bump us into a use variance.
I mean, if I'm
Go ahead,
looking at section 108 5.10, height exceptions, height limitations, item B says, the height limitations created under, hereunder shall not apply to spires, belfries, cupolas, or domes not used for human occupancy, or to parapets, walls, or cornices extending not more than 4 feet above the building.
Thank you,
height.
Mika. Great. That's
More than 4 feet?
Not more than 4 feet.
So 4
Or
feet.
6 feet.
So we'll reduce
Okay.
the 6 feet to the 4 feet.
Thank you.
So Walter, you're adjusting that down to 4 feet to keep it under 10% over the height of the roof? Keep it as a bulk variance, is that what we're saying?
No, we're saying that it's excluded, so that doesn't come into play, but we will reduce it to 4 feet. The use variance is not in question anymore.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Ludwig, just two clarifications. I know you said the parapet has been added for visually buffering the HVAC. Would you be willing to show us a roof plan showing the location of those mechanical and how set back they are?
Definitely, I can do a plan indicating the units, and I can also do a 3D view, so you can see that you can't see the units.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
The other question, as you know, in the building design standards, there are certain requirements on type of materials that are being used for the facade. You might have testified, but could you just explain what is the material that is being used for the facade?
It would be a masonry that would have a stucco finish.
Okay. And that would be all around, or would the front walls be accented with some kind of brick? I know you talked about the awnings to define the entrance, but is there a play of material happening along the?
We were proposing a play with colors.
Okay. And that, I believe, is one of the building design changes that can be applied to making the building more aesthetically pleasing. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Questions?
Nothing further from Mr. Lover. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last witness is our project planner, Mark Remza. Mark?
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Okay, and
For our
we'll,
record, so
we'll
it's
accept your
clear,
credenzas.
Your name and.
Thank
spell
you,
your
Chairman
name.
Gaffron.
Mark A. Remsa, R-E-M-S-A. I'm also going to be talking as a landscape architect. I'm also a licensed landscape architect, since we're going to be talking about buffers.
You'll accept Mr. Remza as a professional, not as an expert in landscape architecture. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Not going to belabor the location of the property. We all know where it is. I will stress, though, that it is an unusually shaped properly. It's a parallelogram, but it's a parallelogram with acute angles. And I think Terry honed in on that aspect because of the illusion of how the entrance area off of the state highway looks to the shape of the property. So you have acute angles in the property. But what I will talk about is what surrounds the property. Of course, across the highway is the very large farm stand / delicatessen and a used car dealership. To the east is, right now, it's open fields and woodlands, and I think maybe it was John who talked about that's the future inclusionary multi-use zoned property for affordable housing at some time. And to the rear is woodlands, and it's also part of that adjoining property to the west that has the single-family home and the also a wooded lot. And we also talked about extensively about what the proposal is. A warehouse building with a little over 27,000 square feet and 1,800 square feet of office space. So in terms of the bulk variances, there are a number of them. Again, having to do with the existing constraints of the property. 7 acres is required as a minimum lot area. We're at 2 acres. The minimum lot width and frontage both are required to be 300 feet. And again, due to the existing conditions, it's 200 feet wide and 200 foot of frontage. The lot depth is just a hair below the 500 that's required, where we have 498 feet. The minimum side yards are required to be at 40 feet, but because the lot width is narrower, we're proposing 19.95 feet on the west side and 20 feet on the east side. And the minimum buffer width along the highway is supposed to be 100 feet, and what's being proposed is 71.5 feet. There's also a number of other parking variances. We heard a lot of discussion on that. I calculated you needed 41 spaces using the square footage method in your ordinance. And under the employee usage, originally there was supposed to be, in the application said 16 employees, so you needed 8 spaces. In this case, we have even less employees, but nevertheless, we have to use the greater of the two, and that's 41 spaces. And we're proposing 11 spaces, getting credit for an additional one under the EV ordinance. I think we already talked about the fact that we don't need a variance for the tractor trailer parking, because that is a maximum. It's an unusual requirement in the ordinance, but it says you can't have a maximum, and it doesn't deal with minimum. I agree with Mika, the minimum parking lot size is a variance, how it's written in your ordinance. Also, another variance is parking in the front yard. And given the shape and the size of the property, the only place to put parking and the loading is in the front yard. Also, there's a variance of having parking closer than 30 feet to the outer wall of the building. we're proposing 10.5 feet. Also, there's a requirement, minimum setback between parking area in an industrial district to a residential use. And I said that to the west, we have a residential use, even though it's in the highway development zone. So our buffer there is only 17.4 feet. That's where the driveway that comes in off of the highway. So the landscape area is 17.4 feet, 50 is required. Maximum fence height in the front yard. I think we heard that we're now eliminating the fence that extends into the front
In the
yard.
front yard, correct.
All right,
Mark,
so
yes.
so that variance has gone away. The minimum sign setback from the lot line is required to be 20 feet. And in this case, in order to have good visibility for motorists, and because of the acute angle of the property, I'm just going to walk over here for a second. I know.
I know we should.
Oh, the green light's on.
Got it.
Got it. Okay. So you can see how the angle of this is unusual, that it's not 90 degrees to the highway, it's at a skew to an acute angle. So motorists that are going by to the east are almost going to pass by the property without even knowing where the entrance is. So if this was set 20 feet back, and then we also heard about, oh, well, the sign's in the buffer, which is even farther back, it wouldn't even be visible. So you wouldn't even be able to identify the property without the sign being located approximately right here. And this is where you do want it, because then a motorist comes by, they'll view the sign, and they'll be able to pull into the property. So that's the sign location right there. And that's the reasoning why you have to put it there, is because of the speed of the highway, the angle of the property, and where the location of the driveway. We also have a number of design exceptions. One is the minimum setback for the driveway to the side property line. Again, that's related to the related to residential uses. Again, 20 feet is required and 17.4 feet is proposed. Maximum driveway curb width. Well, we have to have that extra wide curb width at the curb line of Route 33, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to safely get vehicles in and out. The ordinance says you can only have 35 feet wide at the curb line, and, oh, sorry. Sorry about that. And that 110 feet is proposed. And 110 feet is how you can safely get the trucks and the cars in and out of the property. Uses in the buffer area. I talked about that what's prohibited is you can't have a sign in the buffer area, but in this instance, we have to have the identification sign in that buffer area, or else you won't be able to safely identify the property for motorists. Also, accessory buildings and uses in the front yard. We have parking, loading, and a dumpster in the front yard. And if we look at the property, because it's extra narrow, we can't really practically squeeze the building down to get loading on the side, because the width of required loading would be so great, we'd have an unusable building. And we wouldn't be able to get a dumpster in the rear or side yard, because there's no practical way of narrowing down the building to a point where it's usable. And we're eliminating the minimum lighting in the parking area, because for final site plan, the applicant will revise the lighting to comply with your ordinance. And so there's also in your ordinance solid waste storage. It has to be screened, It can't be in the front yard. It should be enclosed by solid fencing on 3 sides. It should have some landscape buffer area around the enclosure, and it should be separated from the parking area by curb. So none of that is occurring here because the only practical place to put the dumpster and the trash enclosure is in the front yard. So I'm actually going to go back over there. Need that back.
Yeah. Got it.
So when I
Had it.
So when I looked at this with a landscape architect's eye, I said, you know, normally you have trash enclosures with the fencing around it, the landscaping around it. So in this instance, the best way to really enclose the parking, loading, and the trash and dumpster area is really to enclose the front yard with landscaping. Now, this landscaping is obviously going to have to be revised because to achieve this, do we have the handout for everyone for that? All right, so if we don't have the handout, I'm going to describe to you what this is. This area here, this is the state highway. There is a stretch of landscaping here, although it's a little paltry right here. It's going to have to be beefed up. And then we have the detention basin, which is not a very big, deep detention basin, but it's a gentle sloping down and then back up again, up to another area for planting. So really what we're going to have to do is take staggered rows of conifers and large growing evergreen and deciduous shrubs and work them through here to achieve this screen that'll be built and installed on both sides of that basin. And so by staggering the landscaping, having the right mix of plant material, you're going to be able to screen this front yard. So as people are traveling eastbound, they're really not going to be seeing the property. It's westbound is where the buffer is important, because westbound, people can be looking this way and across the highway. And so what you want to do is be able to have this area here as the properly designed landscape buffer. And that's what I'm going to recommend to the applicant. And then for the preliminary, the final design should come back with that kind of landscaping. That way you'll have the effective screen from people looking this way. Because looking this way, they're not even going to be able to see it. And of course, if you're across the highway, this same buffer, which is what this cross section shows, is that you can get the massing of trees and plants here, massing of trees and plants here, and the only practical place to put the stormwater management is between the two.
So Mark, despite the variance for the buffer, which is 100 feet required and 71 feet proposed, we're achieving the purpose behind the
You're
buffer
achieving
ordinance.
the intent and purpose of the ordinance because of the design of that. And typically, the buffers that are along Route 33, they come up, have a berm, and they come back down, and the plantings are centered. So in this case, we're actually putting the plantings on each side, which will have the same effect.
Okay.
So I talked about Laura to yell. Okay, so I talked about the unusual shape of the property. It's narrow, and those are the challenges or the hardships that are associated with the property, which is why we have to have the parking, the loading, and the accessory uses in the front yard. If we look at the intensity of use on the property, we're right at the maximum that's permitted. You know, the impervious cover is at 60%. The applicant agreed to look at reducing that a little bit if it can be, because when the trucks do come in, they have to swing around, and there is a reason why there's no parking spaces in that far northeast corner, because that's where the trucks pull in and then they will pull back. But if we can reduce that, we reduce the amount of impervious cover. But we're right at the permissible maximum impervious cover, and we're also below the maximum building coverage. So even though this is a 2-acre lot, we are right at the permissible levels of intensity of use. So now I have to talk about the legal proofs. And the legal proofs, are related more to the hardship of the property, because it's narrow in its shape. So are we talking about a specific piece of property? Yes. We're talking about Block 3, Lot 11, that has this unusual shape and these challenges. So, but also we have to look at, with these variances, are we promoting the intent and purpose of the municipal land use law? Well, yes, we are. We're providing adequate air, light, and open space. I talked about the intensity of use. Well, we're at or below what you permit in the ordinance. We're providing the sufficient space and appropriate locations for light industrial use. This is what the HD zone allows. Promote the free flow of traffic. You heard that this generates very, very little traffic during the peak hour and has very little parking demand. Promote a desirable visual environment. Heard from the architect that it's going to be a very attractive building that fits into the ordinance. And as well as if you make those changes that I recommend along the buffer area around front, you're going to have a very attractive landscape area. Prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment through the proper use of land. Well, in this case, we're reusing a property, we're redeveloping it, we're bringing it into conformity, getting rid of the house that's on there and all the, was it like filings or something that are on there? They have
The millings.
The millings. So we're bringing into conformity to the use that's intended for the HD zone. And also for the more efficient use of land. And again, reusing this property and not going out and developing, another virgin piece of property. This certainly speaks to the addressing the environmental issues and the efficient use of land. So taking all these intents of the to promote the municipal land use law, we're certainly going to promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Site suitability. This site is suitable because it's already developed with the dwelling, the garage, and the extensive amount of millings. We're cleaning that up. The proposed use is for the warehouse, and it's zoned for that. We can accommodate this a modestly sized warehouse and the improvements, and we can effectively screen the parking and loading areas. So when I look at the negative criteria, to the north, we'll have no negative impact at all on the commercial uses that are across the way. To the east, and I do agree with John, we need to put the sidewalks in to accommodate a continuous path for pedestrians, which is long-term planned for Route 33. I don't see any negative impact because the MU, HD, or AH zone, which is next to it, it's going to be non-residential uses. So this is compatible with that. To the south, there's no negative impact on the woods. And to the west, where the house is, if we put in the proper landscaping and the buffering, and this is a low-intensity use, there'll be no impact there. So finally, we have to reconcile with your master plan. And you just completed one in 2022. And in your land use element goals and objectives, you have a very bold goal and objective, and that's to promote industrial development in appropriate areas in the township and to encourage infill industrial development. You're also to have center of growth along Route 33. So this proposal does all those things, even though we need these bulk variances. I could also talk more about your 2020 master plan reexamination report, but I think the 2022 goals and objectives speak volumes for that. So in conclusion, I believe you can grant the preliminary site plan with these bulk variances and design exceptions for this proposed warehouse facility on the subject property.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Chairman Gaffney.
Thank you. Mr. Rasmussen, any comment?
Nothing for the planner.
Mr. Remza, couple of follow-up regarding the buffer and the berming. I think we had discussed extensively at the TRC, and I'm glad some of the suggestion. I think one of the suggestions was also trying to add some berm height there. I think there was a discussion that a low berm height can be provided. Is that still being considered?
I think it should be.
Okay.
Absolutely, it should be.
So would we, if board was looking at this favorably, would you be able to provide us how much height of berm can we get? I know the requirement is 10 feet or 6 feet. I know we can't get that much, but.
No, because when you do berming, you just don't want to pile up the soil. And a lot of people say, well, make it high. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because, think about it, when it rains, you want the roots to get water. When you have it steep, water runs off, and it's not really watering the plants. So you want to have more of a gentle and then a flat top and then back down again. That's the proper environment for plants on a berm. So in this case, we probably could get in the front because it's a little bit wider. I think we can get somewhere about 3 to 4 feet in height. The one that's in the back, but remember now, the highway's lower and we're rising up with the property. So I think we can get a couple of feet on the smaller landscape area. So with that together and the type of plants that I'm recommending, I think you'll have a very effective buffer.
Thank you. Since the question of height did come up, since you are familiar with the ordinance, could you also shed some light on your opinion on that height?
Well, I happen to agree with you with your finding with the exemption on that. And if we keep the parapet wall to 4 feet or less, we're going to comply with the ordinance.
Thank you. I just wanted it on the
No,
record.
that's a very
for
good
clarity.
point. Yep.
So, thank you.
I agree with you.
Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. You've got to tell me what your secret Gold Falls tree is.
Which is?
That Gold Falls,
John, we're going to change that out and get a better tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that is on your plant list and
something that's evergreen.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, that's all the
Yeah.
questions. Oh, I have one more thing. I'd like to compliment you on the peripheral buffering. Nice
Yes.
job on that.
Yes, the site engineer did a very good job on buffering the edges.
Mr. Benzer.
Mark, I heard you talk about the refuse area, but I was unsure where
Mark,
on
you
the
want
map
to
it
locate
may
that
be.
for Councilman? No, I'm asking Mark to mark that out for you.
So right in here, we've got the two refuse areas. One is that dumpster, and then behind it is the area for the more common refuse
Okay.
from the building.
All right.
So by putting that heavy-duty landscaping here and getting the proper berming and the landscaping here, you will not see that from here. And people are driving by too fast this way to even see there.
Some type of fence around that or something?
No, there's no fence. This is kind of open because this is a dumpster and when the trucks lay down the roll-off dumpster, they're not always so accurate. You don't want them destroying the surround.
Okay.
But I think essentially what I'm recommending is creating a very large enclosure, a natural green enclosure. That's what the landscaping is going to do.
But anyone that enters the parking lot's gonna have a
They are.
nice stark view of that dumpster, right?
They are.
Okay.
And-
But that's
and-
gonna be mostly employees
It's
of the
the
company.
it's
So
the, it's
if
the
they wanna look at
employees.
a dumpster, so
And it's
be
the
it.
truck drivers
Take
who are
it up with
delivering.
HR.
Yeah.
Now, the other quick question, I'm not sure if this is for you or someone else. We mentioned about a couple of 2 to 3, wait, what was it? 2 to 3 box trucks per day. Are they company-owned box trucks that just
They-
go
they are.
between sites?
Yeah, they are.
And then do you keep any of those on the site, depending?
This is where they'll park.
That's where in the loading spots.
See
That's
these
where they'll
loading,
park
these very
overnight.
large, 60-foot long loading spots. This is where they'll park.
Right, and that doesn't affect the tractor trailers coming in, and it doesn't affect the parking on the other side?
Correct. The truck will come in.
When you mention the number of parking spots, there's both parking spots going straight into the building and also perpendicular?
Correct.
coming out?
Yes, you are correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, a couple of questions. I know that in the past, we've talked about trying to alleviate variances by acquiring property to try to widen or take care of that. Can you explain why we have to have so many variances? And is it possible to acquire property from next door?
Yeah, Ms. Polidoro, it's not, because that would put them in I think, in a non-conforming condition, and one site is approved,
Mhm.
so that would be impossible. Yeah.
Okay, in order, I was thinking, in order to get the shape of the property
Yeah.
more square, to get it.
We don't want to take from the east because that's your inclusionary housing.
Right.
Affordable housing
Taking it
site.
from the west where the home is located on the adjoining property,
Would make it a further nonconformity.
much further north.
Right, it just causes.
It causes
non-con-
much greater problems.
Okay. I know that in the engineer's report, there was a mention about a stormwater, best management practices, stormwater plan. Has that been prepared?
Defer to our engineer for.
Do you want to point out how we're handling stormwater management?
We've met with your engineer, Mr. Asmos, and we're going to agree to comply with the requirements of the state stormwater regulations and your local ordinance.
And preparing the
Yes.
stormwater
Yep.
plan? Okay. And the basin in the front is taking care of all drainage, including the roof and parking? Everything will drain to
Yes.
the basin in the front?
Correct.
Um,
The site is sloped towards Route 33, so that's why the basin is in the front of the site.
Okay. And if you needed maintenance on the septic, how do you get back there?
It's my understanding there's going to be grass pavers along the side of the building,
I think it's an 8-foot wide.
8-foot wide grass pavers
On both sides or one side?
on the one side going on the east side.
So you'd have to make room for whatever dumpster area, you'd have to make the access.
Correct, yes.
Provide access for
Yes,
some kind of
absolutely.
maintenance to the back.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
And for the environmental commission, we'll be looking at the lighting and asking for dark sky, downward facing, and discussing the wetland permits, of course, if there's
Sure.
any of that. And what would be connected to the septic system, making sure that you make it clear that there's no waste or anything from the inside that's hazardous or anything washing down the floors. None of that makes its way into the septic. Understanding whether or not there was an underground storage tank and what happens to the existing septic system that may be there for the house.
Which would be removed. I
Right,
think it's
and
located in the front, but yes.
and where it is relative to the
course.
plan, all of that.
All acceptable.
And then also, I would like you to take a look at our environmental resource inventory and the GeoWeb overlay. This particular property has a historic, it's classified as historic. So you may want to just take a look at that and have a conversation with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Ms. Polder, who has designated that it has historic? That's not a federal designation, is it?
It's plotted on the New Jersey GeoWeb, and it's
Okay.
also an overlay, figure 3 in our environmental resource inventory.
We'll look into that.
Yeah, just look into that classification. I don't know what the significance is, that it's just maybe in the past, but having a conversation with our Historic Preservation Commission, sure that they're clear on what that means and can explain it to you.
Understood and agreed.
Yep. And then, of course, if, like Mr. Razamo had said, if you can come before the next time we see the plan.
Before we come for final, come
Right.
to the Environmental
Yes,
Commission. Agreed.
please.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, one more little question. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I back a truck up to that dock, that dumpster out in front. Is it a wheel dumpster they can move to the side, or?
Well, I don't want to steal the thunder.
Patrick, go ahead. Batting 1,000 so far, so don't mess this up.
Yeah. So I think, as one of our witnesses alluded to before, that's essentially why this extra pavement area exists here, so that a truck can come in here, nose into this area, and back into where they need to go. So these will be designed so there's no, encroachment into the other spaces or adjacent dumpster area.
I'm looking at this, and it's showing the dumpster right in front of the loading dock.
That
No,
may,
John, it's not for.
that
That's
may
an
be a
older plan.
revision. Yes.
Okay,
Yep. So what Patrick said is the accurate proposed location.
thank you.
Chairman, I would just add many of the things Karen brought up. Yes, I did have conversations with their engineer, stormwater management. They have to meet the new current regs. We talked about the access road to get to the septic, and he does have a sketch that he can get back there, but again, you'd have to provide that at the time of final to show that on the plans.
Mark, when you talk about current regs, you're not talking about the regs that are looming ahead of us in April or May. We're talking about.
I
the
can
current
only
regs.
talk about what's in our ordinance and and that is the current stormwater regs that were implemented, I believe, almost 2 years ago now.
Sure. Agreed.
So, and there is comments in my review letter about that, and so you should be able to accomplish that. I would just say there's a lot of discussion on that dumpster area in the front. Is there a way to provide some type of fencing around that area and still get access to your dumpster?
I think at one point it'll get destroyed fairly quickly and look bad very quickly. I think that's what Mark was trying to say.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Is
The idea
there?
is that we want to comply with almost every condition that the board throws at us, but we'd like to not have a fence around the dump. We can revisit that at final, Mark, but for
I think
now-
that's a good idea. Maybe you can revisit it and see if there's some other options to
Sure.
do. Again, I've heard it from 2 or 3 board members
Understood.
already.
Would it be an option to move the dumpster over, closer to the side of the property and move the dock areas closer to the middle?
Absolutely, we'll look into that.
Anything else?
Just confirming that you said you will be consistent with the master plan with the sidewalk going around the property?
Yes, David,
Good.
I would urge the applicant to put that in.
Right.
I don't see the size of the warehouse on these plans. It's been updated, because you put the size of the property to the warehouse.
The The warehouse is 27,252
Yeah, but it,
square feet.
shouldn't it be on the plan somewhere?
It should be, if not on the architectural, but it should be on the site plan, John,
building
sure.
Profiles. I see only the,
Yeah, he's got, yeah, well, it should be on the site plan. I don't have,
well, if it's just on there somewhere.
we'll
for
make
us,
sure it
that's
gets
all.
on there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you just say 27,000?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm looking at this chart and it's saying 25,352
That's the warehouse, and then the office, Mr. Rothman, is 1,800 square feet.
on top of it.
On top, yes. Yep.
Okay, now I understand.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else? One from the public wish to be heard? Forward. Yeah, you gotta.
Oh, you gotta come up. Let's swear you in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Hope you got it.
I do.
State your full name.
Michael Beckus, Bekas.
Have a seat.
I really have a comment. First of all, did they say that they're going to have a deceleration lane going into the property?
The answer was probably will not be required by NJDOT because of the low intensity and low traffic volume.
Well, I live at Renaissance on Route 33, which is just a stone's throw from where this property is proposed to be built. The traffic that goes by there all day long, mostly during a higher level of traffic during the earlier hours and also on the later hours with a lot of cars coming off the turnpike and going east. Well, that traffic is moving at 55, 65, and 70 miles an hour. It's going very fast. And a truck trying to stop to make a right turn into this property could be a problem. And, we see it all the time. There are trucks pulling into Wawa. There are trucks pulling into this construction site. I forgot what it is, before Wawa. And traffic has to slow down every time, because they have to put on the brakes in order to make a right turn. And this, from what I understand, unless I'm wrong, they said that this is pretty much a right turn into the property and a right turn out of the property. Out of the property is probably not that big an issue because you got the third lane over there. But there's only 2 lanes there, and there's a lot of cars, and they're moving very fast. And I'd hate to see somebody rear end into a truck because it had to stop short in order to make this right turn into the property. That's it.
Thank you.
Just a comment on that. When Renaissance was built, the DOT did not require the deceleration lane. That was something that was worked out with the mayor and the council and the DOT. They had to do it years later.
It took 10 years.
10 years,
to
yeah.
get it through the DOT until we had it. And the problem, because we have a right turn into Renaissance.
Yeah.
And without that
You have to be on
deceleration
the
lane,
microphone.
you got to slam on the
Excuse
brakes.
me.
Be on the microphone.
You have to go to the mic.
Oh,
We're recording everything that's said.
Oh, okay.
Shoulder.
The deceleration lane took us 10 years to get. And during that period of time, before we got approval, it required us to basically make a sharp right turn into Renaissance without any way of slowing down. And it was a problem. And so although it wasn't required by the TOT, we needed it. You're talking about older people driving cars, making a short right turn into the property. It is a problem.
Don't pick on older people.
Yes, but he has a point to be considered.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Any further discussion? Okay, motion to close the public portion.
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Approve the application as revised.
Just a further point. All the variances and design waivers discussed this part of your.
Part of my motion.
I will second that. However, I think what was,
Can you talk into
just,
the mic?
Hmm?
Yeah,
Microphone?
no
Oh, sorry.
microphones and no one.
I always thought I had a loud enough voice. Okay, I'll second that motion. However, I think the recent speaker, who lives in Renaissance, makes a very good point about a slowing lane. So I suggest that that be considered, or at least entertained to be looked at between now and when you come here for final.
Yes, we'll make application to the NJDOT and we'll see what their comments.
Just where it's controlled.
Correct, they have sole jurisdiction.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Polidoro?
Yes.
Mr. Rothman?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky? Yes. Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Councilman Van Zora?
Yes.
Markel?
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time
Thank
this
you.
evening. We greatly appreciate your comments, your review, and your vote. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
I got one more question.
Yeah. Okay.
What I-
Okay, we're gonna move straight ahead to the memorializations.
Could you take it outside? We have other work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, we're gonna move forward to the memorializations. We're gonna take them one by one. Robert and Doreen McDade, PB 1248-22. These are all from our November 30th meeting. Do I have a motion with respect to accepting the memorialization?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we're gonna do it by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain?
Mr. Riggs abstains.
Okay, second one, Apple Realty LLC, PB 1246-22. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
And finally, Farrington Boulevard LLC, PB 1247-22. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? No. Approved. Okay, okay, we're going to open up to the public for any topics that wish to be raised. Hearing none, motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we do have all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, we do have a discussion item tonight. Recommendation of amendment to land develop ordinance. Alan, you want to speak on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief, just to give the board some background on this. So, as many of you know, and as Jerry can speak better than I, whenever there's an ordinance that affects the development regulations in Chapter 108 of our Township Code, the MLUL requires that in between the township introducing that ordinance and approving it, that it comes to the planning board for review. The Township Council introduced this particular ordinance, 2023-005, on January 4th, just as an introduction, which amends Chapter 108 of the code to align with state requirements for electric vehicle supply service equipment and make-ready parking spaces. So what's a little unique about this ordinance is that it's a model ordinance that comes directly from the state of New Jersey. So what's in this ordinance is actually, and Mark and Mika obviously have more expertise on this than I do, but is already state law. It's already required of applicants who come before the board, including the applicant that we just spoke with or that we just ruled on tonight, where electric vehicle parking spaces, or at least the infrastructure to allow for electric vehicle parking spaces are now required, and there's a certain formula for that requirement for every multifamily dwelling complex, commercial, anytime a parking lot is being built. And the ordinance that was distributed to this board, I think this past week, lays out those requirements. So while under the MLUL there is a requirement for the planning board to review and I suppose theoretically give any comments to the township council before they move to adopt this on the February 6th council meeting. This one's a little unique in that the state has mandated this. This is a model ordinance. There's really not much to change. In fact, the state really gave very few items within here that the township even had any control over. And I'll give those kind of quick examples. The state allowed the township to decide the size of the parking space. They recommended a 9x18 with consultation with Mr. Razumowitz. The township council, included 10x20 parking spaces to be consistent with the rest of our ordinance. In addition, the state allowed the township to determine what penalty there would be for someone who parks in an electric vehicle parking space who's not supposed to. We've simply in this ordinance, refer people to our general penalty code and allow the police department to issue their penalty for illegal parking. So again, those are very minor things that the state allowed townships to tinker with a little bit, but 99% of this is a model ordinance that's already state law and has been, I think, for a year or maybe even longer than that. So with that said, that's all I have.
This is open for discussion, but not for vote.
No, it's not for a vote. In your packet, there's a resolution, recommendation of amendment, to Chapter 108, electric supply service. So I would urge you to approve this. It'll go back to the council, have a second reading. They can put it in. I don't know if Mika has anything regarding the
I can say to that effect again, like Mr. McGowan said, this has become a state mandate. As you must have seen, I've been applying it to the application that has come before this board since September 2022. It went into effect. What, in terms of consistency with our master plan, I would say is one of the goals of our master plan is looking at smart growth, sustainable development, and that's one of the MLUL requirements also. So I would say with approving this kind of, approving this kind of ordinance within our land use ordinance would be consistent with our master plan as well as municipal land use law.
Yes.
My question is, what's the date on the plans? How far back do the plans go that have to have this?
So this went into effect, DCA published it, and they said, I believe from September 1st, 2022, it will be applicable to any applications that have not yet received building permits or certificate of occupancy. So anything that was in the process, they had to apply the EV requirement, but anything that was already received building permits wouldn't have to apply the EV.
So prospectively.
So I'm thinking of the giant approvals or preliminary approvals that are on 33, corner of Prineville and all those development, they're going to have to comply with this, or they've been.
If they were approved before September
Right.
2022, they won't have to.
We don't have a way to go back. I mean, the law was what, July 9th, 2021? So
I think it was published, they had a requirement that when it's published September 1st, 2022 onwards, they have to be.
okay. And so it does apply to residential, large, like you said, large residential developments like JSM,
Yeah, they do apply to large developments. There's a ratio, like for residential, it is, I believe, 15% of the parking spaces that would be approved. So, and then for non-residential, there is a formula where it is 1 to 50, you have to do one space, 50 to 75, and anything beyond, I believe 150, it is 4% of the requirement.
And Mr. Chairman, we started implementing this through
Yeah.
Mika's review letters as well as mine when the state statute went into effect, so back in September. So you may have seen that in a couple of previous applications, we brought it up, but we've been doing it since the law went into effect.
I have one question. Have we updated the penalty ordinance that we're referring to so that it properly reflects the charging stations? Because we're saying, all we have is handicap, as far as I know. So would we reference these to how it
Updated the fine, is that what you're asking? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, because you said that we would just go to the existing ordinance and sure, but if it doesn't say that they are.
So I
There at the
several of us in advising the council before this went into for introduction, we did have a conversation with the police chief about what would be appropriate in terms of penalties, and there is a provision within the ordinance that gives. It doesn't say electric vehicle necessarily, but it does provide the police with the authority to issue a fine for someone who's illegally parking in the electric vehicle space. So I took the chief's guidance on that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
You need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Polidoro,
Yes. Sorry.
Ms. Brodsky. Yes. Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Vanzura,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. Okay, there's an additional discussion item on the addendum to the agenda tonight. It's applicant requests reaffirmation of minor subdivision for Conifer Realty LLC, vet housing, PB 1132-21.
Very briefly, this is in the best interest of the town. Veterans housing is imminent, but the minor subdivision that you granted wasn't filed on time. Need the reaffirmation, giving them an additional time to file the deeds. That would so that this Conifer Realty going to be building the building would be able to go forth and file the deed. So I'd ask that you consider a motion and approve the reaffirmation of the minor subdivision.
All right, I would move the reaffirmation.
I will second.
Ms. Polidoro,
Yes.
Mr. Rothman,
Yes.
Mr. Riggs,
Yes.
Ms. Brodsky. Yes. Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Councilman Vanzura,
Yes.
Mr. Markel,
Yes.
Chairman Gaffrey.
Yes. Okay, last item on the agenda is correspondence. No correspondence tonight. Anybody move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Adjourn.
Aye.
Thank you.